right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We're so thrilled that you have chosen to join us today for Tridium Talk on Niagara 4.12, sneak peek, as well as an overview of the upcoming Niagara Summit 2022. We are very, very thankful to be here with you. And yeah, even more, we've got some exciting things coming up. And hope that you're going to be able to join us for the summit. And let's kick it off. Let's get moving. All right. So what's new with Niagara? So Niagara 4.10 is our long-term support release. And if you are signed up as a Niagara community member, hopefully you've received an email indicating that 4.10 U2 is now available. So again, this is our long-term support release. This is something that's relatively new for the Niagara framework, insofar as traditionally we have tied long-term support release to the deprecation of a hardware platform. But we've heard feedback from the community, from users such as yourselves, about the need for us to be able to provide a long-term support release for a particular version that enterprise customers, for example, can leverage and install on their sites and have that assuredness that the version will be supported for a given length of time. And so for 4.10, what we've done is we've committed to supporting it for 2.5 years. So it was released in March of 2021. And so the support's going to put it through the end of 2023. And what you can expect is that we'll try to release an update build about every 6 months. So 4.10R was released in March. We released 4.10 U1 in August. And then here we are again in March with 4.10 U2. So you can expect such a cadence throughout its lifespan. And again, we're providing this so that you guys can really have a stable build that's not going to feature any breaking changes. And what every update build will contain will be a collection of defect fixes that have been reported by customers against the previous version, along with any updates to Java, for example, or any other critical third-party libraries. We want to provide you with as stable and, more importantly, secure as instance as possible. And to do that, we need to keep up to date with our third-party libraries, and we're committed to doing that. And so for 4.10, you can rest assured that you're going to get lengthy support for this version. And I think this is something that will please many of the enterprise or larger customers that really need an LTS just to maintain their operations and infrastructure. 4.11, that was released in December of last year. And it is full of some goodness. We've got some really powerful features in 4.11, from BACnet Secure Connect, from Web Wiresheet. We have new way of handling histories and alarms with the archive history provider and the alarm archive provider. TLS 1.3, and I could go on. 4.11 is a big release. And, to that end, we are actually going to release an update build to 4.11 in the next couple of weeks. So we're doing this on account of, we want to update our Java version. And there's a few other things we want to resolve from a defect standpoint. So we are planning to release an update build to 4.11 within the next few weeks. So that's something that you can anticipate. We're going to hope to have it available, by the end of the month, if not by mid to early April. So go ahead and get ready for that one. I wanted to give you guys kind of some advance notice so that you can plan accordingly. We understand 4.10 U2 was just released, but the whole idea is that there's one thing that we're committing to you, and it's that we're going to provide you with as secure and stable instance of Niagara as possible. And to do that, we do recommend that you pick up our update builds upon its release. So something to consider. But we're here today to discuss Niagara 4.12 as well as the upcoming summit. So we've got some really exciting things coming in 4.12. And in case you're wondering, we are now in early access testing for 4.12. So if you are interested in taking 4.12 for a test drive, reach out to Tridium beta test at tridium.com to get access. We will, as soon as we get all of the I's dotted, the T's crossed, we can get a build over to you, and then you can start testing it out accordingly. And then following from this early access testing, we are planning to start beta testing. Now you might ask, what's the difference between early access and beta? Well, early access is intended for you just to be able to test 4.12 and its features on your own PC, for example, or on your own host device. And beta testing, however, is intended to be deployed at actual live site. So if you have any customers out there that really are looking forward to trying out some of the features that we have here in 4.12 that I'll be reviewing, let us know. Again, reach out to Tridium beta test at tridium.com, and we can review your site accordingly to see if it will be a good candidate. And even if it's not, you can always sign up to be an early access tester, which will give you access to all those features so you can just try it out yourself. So from a 4.12 perspective, there's one thing that you've probably heard if you have watched a Tridium talk from last year or the previous year. And if you have, one thing you'll notice is that we're going to continue to drive value in the product. And we're going to drive value in accordance with our core themes or the core tenets or pillars of the product. And of course, you're seeing those here in the mid part of your screen: visualization, connectivity, security, deployment, certification, and compliance. And when you look across all of these tenets, the most important is security for us. And that's why you're seeing these update builds come out, folks. I mean, that's really what it is. It's to address any potential security vulnerabilities that might be on the horizon, but also it's, the security of your installation as well. If there's any defects that have been causing a customer pain, well, look, we're committed to resolving them, and you can pick those up in your update build. But when we talk about 4.12, however, we've got a number of really useful features, I think, that are going to kind of serve as a driver to get this version down to the customer level. And if we start from the visualization aspect, we have Web Wiresheet 2.0. Now you might ask, well, I thought Web Wiresheet was in 4.11. It is, but in 4.12, we've up-leveled it. So we've added some new ways of doing some pretty common tasks that a user would do within a Wiresheet. And that's like linking, relating, for example. And with 4.12, we've optimized, streamlined, improved your workflow like never before. I can just tell you, for example, and if you have been linking before, and let's say that you've been having to delve through your station just to be able to find a component to link from your previous targeted component, it can be a lengthy effort sometimes, especially if you're using compositing, or you have a very complex folder structure. Sometimes it's hard to find components to link. Well, with 4.12, we've really changed the game. And what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to use some features within the product to kind of help you do that linking. And such as the search service, or directly from the nav tree. So, if you're interested in learning more about what Wiresheet 2.0 is, come to the summit. If you've already registered, great. You're going to have the opportunity to get up to speed on all of our new methods and means, as well as just some tips and tricks from some of our insider experts. And then, let's say, for example, that you're not able to come to the summit. No worries. We wish you were able to, because it's going to be a great event, as you'll see here in a few minutes. But what we are planning to do is we'll have some Tridium talks that will be available in the future on some of these 4.12 features. So fret not if you're unable to join the summit, because we will be providing some of these Tridium talks on some of the features as well. So in keeping from the visualization theme or tenet, you might have noticed that we are producing many HTML5 views for Workbench application interfaces. And this is something we're committed to doing. We understand that there's a need for us to provide support for these engineering views in a browser, such that you have multiple ways of kind of accomplishing some of those configuration tasks that you might be doing within a station. You know, we're not saying that by any means Workbench is not going to be needed for certain tasks, but we want to give you flexibility. We want to, for example, in the event that you don't have Workbench with you, you don't have the thick line on your laptop, you can use a workstation on the customer's network, for example, or you can use a mobile device, right? And this is where really the power comes in to do any of that station level configuration. So with 4.12, you'll have the Niagara Point Manager view, which will allow you to discover points, configure points from Niagara stations. And then a kind of necessary component of that whole process is the BQL Builder. And BQL Query Builder is useful for finding components that you'd like to add to your station via the discovery mechanism, but it's also useful for creating reports. So now, for example, if you have used BQL grid with a report pane, for example, you can now actually configure that BQL query through the browser. So you've got some new ways of kind of doing some of those tasks that should help you get off the job and kind of move on to the next item. So if we go to connectivity, the MQTT Azure Authenticator. So with 4.12, we've kind of rounded out our cloud support within MQTT because we have authenticators for Azure, GCP, and AWS. So no matter what cloud environment you want to interact with, we're here to support you. And we want to empower you with the tools and the capabilities to get done what you need to get done. The next one is a big one, the HTTP driver. This is going to open up the framework to REST API endpoints and other web services. So this is going to be useful for, let's say that you wanted to have a digital signage in your lobby, and you wanted to pull in traffic data, you wanted to pull in flight information. Let's say that you're in a metro with pretty comprehensive subway system. Well, you can start pulling in data from those sites, for example, and be able to display them on your digital signage. So, and that's really just one small use case. You can use the HTTP client driver to pull in weather data, for example. So, really the sky is the limit on this one. And you can anticipate a in-depth session on this during the summit. And similarly for MQTT as well. The next on the list is the MSTP Engine Optimization. So with 4.12, we've kind of re-engineered the way that we handle MSTP traffic. So traditionally, it used to be handled, for example, with a Pro JACE, the primary processor was handling it. And what we've done actually is we've kind of re-engineered that, and we are utilizing a coprocessor that's on board to handle that traffic. And what that's going to get you is it's going to get you the assuredness that tokens aren't going to get dropped. And when comm needs to get from one device to an endpoint, it will get there. And I think that what that's going to do is it's going to give you back that performance that you've grown accustomed to. So when it comes to communication, to device connectivity, this is really an important pillar of our product. And as such, 4.12 will provide some considerable gains in that regard. MaxPro Support in the video framework. We now support access cameras for direct viewing or live viewing, and we also support milestone NVRs. So if you have used those cameras to date, then great. Well, in 4.12, you actually have some more options because you can use the MaxPro VMS. Now with 4.12, and what that's going to do is it's going to remove the need to use an applet, for example, to stream that video content. So very exciting feature in that regard. From a deployment perspective, internationalization support, that might have brought up a question or two in your mind. And what that involves is when 4.12 gets released, we're going to provide you all with a release artifact that contains kind of a manifest of all the lexicon changes in this release. So whether something's been edited, whether something's been deleted or added, you'll have a corresponding document which contains all those changes, as well as the location of those changes. So that will be very important for all of our customers that are operating in the non-English speaking segments of the world, because we understand that we need to empower you with the tools and the resources to help you get the job done and get it done right and quicker than you did before. So from an Edge Tools updates perspective, we have been consistently improving our provisioning processes and steps. And it's been going on for the past few releases, and it's not stopping with 4.12 either. And we've made a couple changes as well. So when you launch up provisioning in 4.12, you might notice, for example, that we had 3 panes that we showed in that view. And now what we've done is we've kind of combined the top 2, because the top one traditionally used to be for jobs that you only wanted to run once. And then the second one was for across multiple stations. Now we've just combined those because it really should be combined as one window, just to give you that kind of user experience that you would expect. So in the interest of trying to just improve the product across the board, we've made some changes in that regard. But then in addition to adding some steps as well. So from a certification and compliance, this one, even though it might appear as being small, this is a big one for our product, and it's the expanded history character limitation. Traditionally used to be capped at 44 characters, and we have removed that requirement. And where that's going to help is really across the board, especially if you're in a non-English speaking segment of the world, that limitation might have been very difficult just due to the native language support. But even here within the States, for example, that's something that's been very difficult to grapple with as an SI. And the reason being is because, customers have very particular or bespoke point naming conventions that they're going to want you to follow. Well, now with 4.12, you're going to be able to meet those requirements because we've expanded it accordingly. So you should have that flexibility, and we're excited to be able to give it to you. BACnet Protocol Revision 15 update. What that represents is, we're not seeking a new certification for 4.12, but instead what we've done is we provided the necessary functionality within our BACnet stack that conforms with the Protocol Revision 15 requirements. So if you are a partner, for example, that has your own hardware, and you're taking our Niagara Portability Software Development Kit, you can get that tested against Protocol Revision 15 4.12, and you can have some sense of assuredness that it will meet the requirements accordingly. So a bunch of good things coming up in 4.12, and this is a perfect segue. So, why should you attend the summit? Well, you're going to get an in-depth dive on some of those features that I just reviewed, for example. I mean, that's going to be incredibly valuable in of itself, but it's not, we didn't just stop there, because you're going to have a developer boot camp, which is going to be a day's worth of content geared specifically towards those who are developing and extending the Niagara framework. You have a trade show that's designed to facilitate, an optimized one-to-one conversation among exhibitors and attendees. You're going to have educational tracks with specialized breakout sessions that are kind of focused on tech trends, applications within Niagara, or kind of business related tracks that will feature presentations from industry thought leaders along with seasoned members of the Niagara community. And then of course, it's a fantastic social and network opportunity. We're going to have all of the who's who of the Niagara community at this event. And if you're somebody, for example, that is new to the community, this is going to be a great event for you, because never before are you going to have such easy access to some of our industry stalwarts and our experts. And in addition to that, you're going to have multiple tracks and sessions that you can attend, at your own leisure or in accordance with your own schedule, that will really help you as you go on through the rest of the year, and as you tackle jobs, as you complete jobs, or perhaps as you're bidding on new opportunities, for example. So from a developer day standpoint, we've got a number of really exciting topics And many of these, I think, are going to really align with some of the challenges that many people that extend the framework are dealing with. So we have some new development tools with Gradle that we're going to be introducing. So this is kind of a new way of building and developing with the Niagara framework. So we've tried to optimize the product really overall, but we can't just stop, with features or just updating libraries. We need to kind of do a comprehensive approach, and that's what you're going to get with some of the Gradle development changes. Adding new provisioning steps. This kind of follows from what I was just discussing on the 4.12 features overview. We've been adding steps really since the introduction of Niagara 4, and over the past 2 years, we haven't gotten a chance to meet as frequently as, of course, I would like. But what you'll see with the 4.12 is a number of new steps that will also be covered during this developer day. And then, as I mentioned, you're going to see the HTTP client driver in action. I mean, this thing is incredibly powerful, and we've got one of our best engineers who will be providing a demonstration of this on developer day. So it's something you're definitely going to want to catch. Our security dashboard, this continues to be something that is just picking up steam with end users. They really appreciate the insights that the security dashboard provides, especially our IT level professionals. This is something that really came from them, and what we've been doing since in 4.12 too, we've been adding steps, and we're going to continue to add steps or add items to the security dashboard, which will give you kind of that overview of the security robustness of your Niagara instance. The archive history provider is new with 4.11, but what we wanted to show you here at the developer day is how you'll build your own, in the interest of keeping true to our framework moniker. We want to give you guys the tools, the know-how to build your own archive provider in accordance with your customers and their needs, or any particular challenges that you are seeking to solve. Security best practices. I mean, you're going to see security quite frequently on this agenda. And the reason being is because it's going to continue to be, I think, the most important aspect of our product and our industry, especially as we're seeing threats emerge just by the day. Security is just so essential to ensure the livelihood of your Niagara instance. Debugging tools with Niagara UI. This is going to be something that's important, especially as you start to interact with UX media, which is the new media type we introduced in 4.10. It's going to kind of get us on much more of a modern footing as it comes to just creating visualizations within the Niagara station. So I do encourage you to attend this session if you're not. Internationalization, this is something we covered with 4.12, but it's entirely relevant and important enough to capture here through a developer session. And then Niagara UI mobile with UX media. The thing is that many people used to just view their interfaces through a PC or a workstation, but those days are long gone. It's being viewed from nearly every medium, whether it be a mobile device, a tablet, a 55-inch monitor hanging on the wall. You've got multiple kind of media types or mediums that people are using to interact or to view visualizations from a Niagara station. And so this Niagara UI mobile with UX media is going to give you an in-depth dive on some best practices associated with this development. And then, of course, marketplace and developer training updates. This is a big one. The marketplace is something that's been coming, and it's going to be incredibly valuable for all of the customers out there that extend the Niagara framework. So from a general session perspective, we've got some really great people that have decided to join us, and we couldn't be more thankful for their participation because, our Niagara customer panel, the cyber defense panel are going to be a great show. You're going to have some of the best of the best on the panel, and they'll be sharing some of their insights as what they see from a threat level perspective, some new emerging trends. And so definitely encourage you to participate in those. And of course, the economics insights. I mean, that's going to be something that is relevant for all of us. especially consider we have the Federal Reserve here in the States that are be raising interest rates, and that's going to affect really our economy across the board. And it's important to kind of have kind of a 30,000-foot perspective into the economy, as well as how it impacts our industry. And then, of course, ESG, environmental safety and governance, that continues just to be a very, very important buzzword. And we're going to have a really interesting discussion on that because we have some leaders from within Honeywell, from across the industry, really, who are going to be participating in this panel. And it's really going to be not only be touching on some of the aspects of ESG, but how do we approach this kind of evolving horizon that is really emphasizing ESGs? And I think what you walk away from it is that the Niagara framework, is truly going to be that one enterprise system of record that's going to help you meet those ESGs, for example. So from a breakout session standpoint, from Tuesday, from the business track, we've got specifying intelligent buildings. And this is something, that we're seeing emerge from an industry perspective through the Vision 25 master spec. And we're going to have some industry experts who are going to walk you through, complex integration requirements and applications on enterprise projects. You're going to learn some issues, requirements, best practices of specifying Niagara. And, mega customers, mega projects, mega solutions. This is going to be around digital twin, tagging, as well as, how you make that integration happen, and how do you ensure that the right tags get basically configured on your station. And then, some challenges associated with that. We'll be having a showcase for the headquartered and smart city projects, which will feature some insight trends, perspectives from some key industry influencers. Working with the federal government and the US DoD customers, that's a tightly regulated environment. In order to play ball, you really have to check off many boxes, and you have to ensure that you're ready to meet their needs, because they do represent a superset of requirements. And the reason being is just, from a security and stability standpoint. So we'll have a really insightful business track on that. Hiring, training, retaining superior talent. The workforce is changing by the day, and we're going to have some insiders that are going to be able to shed some light on this challenge, and how you can address it as a business leader, for example. And then finally, the Niagara journey. This is going to be kind of a roadmap, not only 4.12 but beyond 4.12. So this one's going to be incredibly useful for anybody out there that's trying to get some insight as to where we're heading from a Niagara perspective. The breakout sessions for the tech trends and application tracks. I think you're probably seeing a theme here emerge, and that's security, edge to cloud transitions, and that's something that we'll be covering in both of the tracks. So, for example, you've got hackers, uninvited guests. What do you do with them? What's some ways to protect your install against it? The innovation revolution. This is going to be covering a number of products that have emerged in the market that have truly been a game changer. Project engineering, design secrets for great looking graphics. This is something that if you take along to the developer day, you're going to have just an incredible course that honestly, you would see people pay, thousands of bucks just to be able to get a training session on that alone. So you're going to get that at the summit. So it's another important value prop coming. And then, of course, pushing data to the cloud using the JSON toolkit and QTT. If you think about what we were talking about with 4.12, having the Azure Authenticator, you've got the ability to interact with every cloud platform now. And if you go to Developer Day and you augment that with this application track session, I really feel like you guys are going to walk away with the know-how to accomplish that in accordance with your customers' expectations. Data from the tech trends perspective, tagging and twinning, I touched on that briefly, but this is something that is it's minimum to compete these days. And we've got a number of of folks from our industry that have been really spent their career in kind of addressing some of the items of tagging, and how do we represent a building as it's constructed in a model such that we can evaluate its performance in relation to the installed conditions and so on. ESG demands, we mentioned that as being a general session track, but it's important enough to cover through a tech trends track as well. Indoor air quality, or IAQ, in healthy buildings. I think COVID, one thing that it really did bring to light is how important IAQ is. And not only just for the health of the building, but also as a selling prop for any building owner. You want to inform your customers, or you want to inform your tenants that they are in the most healthy building as possible. And I know that COVID, as I mentioned before, really brought to light that some airside systems were not optimized to really provide a healthy environment for its occupants. And then, of course, next gen wireless, bringing new opportunities to Niagara, and just discussing some solutions in that regard. And then from a Wednesday perspective, we've got a number of really useful trends that will be building on some of the content from the previous days. The master system integration, or integrator, or MSI evolution. We've really seen the MSI role kind of emerge as a kind of like the ultimate planner of how a smart building gets rolled out, and to ensure that any systems that get basically integrated with it throughout its lifespan meets certain requirements. So you're going to get some good perspectives from some of our panel experts. And then, architecting and maintaining a cybersecure BASOT framework. And this is important, just given some of the cyber threats that have been emerging on a day-to-day basis. And then no BMS, no problem. This one's going to be great, especially for any of those customers that have been thinking about, how do I extend the Niagara framework to sites that really don't feature a BMS, or a traditional BMS as we understand it. Of course, as I mentioned, we'll have some coverage of the marketplace during Developer Day, but you're also going to have kind of an insight, or kind of an in-depth overview of what the marketplace is going to look like when it's going to get rolled out. You're going to have some cloud integration case studies, connected intelligent edge, containerization, and portability reviews, and then kind of tying with the smart, the MSI evolution. You have the smart buildings from concept, design, install, and commissioning. So you're going to have some tracks that are kind of more or less going to cover some similar content, but it's not going to be the same. It'll be complementary. So when you're kind of planning out the session, or the ones that you want to attend, we do encourage you to keep that in mind, because if you have something that's particularly important for you due to a customer install that you're working on, we're setting these sessions up such that you can kind of get that extra affirmation through each day. And what a perfect point to jump into: open cloud connectivity, the HTTP driver. As we mentioned, we're covering that in Developer Day, but we're also covering it through the applications track. So you should be able to really get up to speed with how to use it, best practices, as well as some practical use cases. And then from a project engineering standpoint, using templates and provisioning, it's going to continue to be the quickest way to manage multiple Niagara instances. And then system database and on-demand PX. Again, we want to help you guys with accomplishing those tasks that used to take X amount of hours. We want to streamline them, and system database goes a considerable length at providing that. And then analytics and Edge 10 and ACE control. These are things that some customers are out there using, but we'll be kind of covering some, again, best practices and kind of tips on how to leverage and manage Edge 10 and ACE application going forward, along with analytics. Tech trends, these ones are exciting for a number of reasons, but Niagara meets BIM and virtual reality, augmented reality. This one's going to be big because the truck rolls get more expensive. Just think about the amount of the price for gas these days, or petrol if you're in the UK. So that one's going to be very important, especially with its integration with BIM, because we're seeing BIM's getting much more uptake just due to digital twin needs, as well as kind of other comprehensive strategies that a facility owner might be leveraging. Integrating access control, like commercial, industrial. We want to cover these verticals that otherwise we don't have a giant footprint like we would in commercial. So these are things that are important for us to cover, because we believe that it does add value to the discussions. It is completely germane, and it is something perhaps that you have integrated with in the past. So we have some industry experts, as you would imagine, that will be kind of taking the lead on the panels, providing their insights and some challenges and opportunities on the horizon. And then, of course, we have some social events. We want to ensure that in addition to having all this great content, you have the ability to blow off some steam. So we're going to have a welcome reception on Monday following the developer day. You're going to have some live music and more. It's going to be starting at 5:30. And then on the 5th, on Tuesday, we're going to have the expo, which will follow the last business track, application, and tech trend session. And then the event at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. So the NASCAR Hall of Fame will follow the expo. And I think you're going to enjoy that. There's a number of really cool exhibits at the Hall of Fame. And in addition, to that, we're all going to be together. So it's been 2 years since we've really been face to face, if not more. So this is going to be a great opportunity for all of us to touch base. All right. From a Niagara resources and materials standpoint, I encourage you all to go to Tridium.com. If you haven't taken a drive out to Tridium.com in a while, I encourage you to return, because we have optimized the layout, the content, and we've provided you with the means and methods to quickly find what you need. So I do encourage you to take a look. Of course, I think this is a current instance count, so we're at 1,088,706 instances. So that's a great metric to note, and it wouldn't be possible without all of you. Niagara Resource Center. We want you to get the know-how when you need it. This is going to continue to be your one-stop shop for all user docs, or any quick start guide, wiring guide, for example, or other essential policy information. We encourage you to leverage the Niagara Resource Center as much as you can. And it will continue to be really your ace up the sleeve, because whenever you need the content, you can rest assured that it is there waiting for you. And if you have particular documents that are useful for you, you can always save them for later use, such that you don't have to search or navigate through the site just to find it. If you're interested about more Tridium talks, for example, you want to see some things from 4.11, or for some of these upcoming 4.12 features, which we will produce Tridium talks for, you want to find them, you can go to Tridium.com, go to the events tab, and see a list of all of the previous Tridium talks. And then in addition to that, you can also view it from YouTube. So we've given you some flexibility in that regard, which I hope you've heard me say flexibility at least 20 times today, because that is really what we want to give you all. We want to, in addition to helping you solve problems, we want to give you the ability to find what you need when you need it, so you don't spend time just digging through content. Again, we want to optimize your workflow in every sense of the word. So Niagara Pro Tips, this is available on YouTube. James and Kevin really have some great strategies on how to accomplish some tasks within Niagara. And then, of course, our updated learning. We have the Tridium University 2.0. So we've got a new layout, some new content therein as well. So we do encourage you to take a look at that when you get a chance. All right, so we've got questions here. I'll go ahead and open that up. Second. All right. Let's see. Yep. So I see the history character limit. Yep. So you're going to have at least, would like to use this early access testing session as an opportunity for you to, give us feedback on what you can currently do. But you're going to have, I think you're going to have up to about 140 characters you'll be able to use. So should be pretty sufficient there. All right. And of course, if you need more, that's, let us know. Has anything been done, Duncan, on the rendering of HTML5 views from within Workbench? So, what we encourage you to use, if you're interested, for example, for the HTML5 views, take them for a spin in the browser. We understand that when you're in the thick client or Workbench, it might take a little bit longer than the old AX views. And the reason being is because it's just using completely different rendering technology. But yes, we have been working on that. So from when you have, for example, let's say you have the search manager open and you have a pretty extensive search query that's resulted in hundreds of records. Yes, we have spent a good amount of engineering time at addressing some of those. So I do encourage you to take a look at that and assess it and let us know, give us some feedback on whether you think that it's been addressed or if there are any other areas of improvement that you see. So I think so 410U2. So 410U2 is going to contain all of the the urgent defects that have been reported against 410U1. As I mentioned, we have the release notes available on the Niagara community site. So if you have a particular NCCB number that you're looking to see whether it's been resolved in 410U2, you can do that now. And if you have any, let's say that you didn't see one defect in there or a ticket that wasn't resolved, you can reach out to tech support or reach out to your sales support who will be able to give you some feedback in that regard. All right, let's see. Tutorials are free. You can, for example, we have a lot of content that's available through the Tridium University that is free. And we also have YouTube videos for TridiumTalks. All right. So, Brad, on the Java changes, what we're doing is we just take the latest JRE drop. So we get a Java drop pretty much quarterly from our Java vendor. And as soon as it drops, we pick it up. So what you can expect, if you go to SPY, you can see the version of Java that we're on. And we'll be in version 3.21 for this upcoming version. All right. So there's a question on Wiresheet in the browser. How often does it save? As soon as you drag a component onto the Wiresheet, it saves. So it's going to be just dependent upon your actions. So as soon as you invoke an action, it will save accordingly. Go up here. So Brian Johnson, you wanted to know using HTML5 views in Workbench. Yeah, you can currently do that now. Let's see. Update version does not mean Java 11, Benno. We're still on Java 8 right now. So when I mentioned we are updating our Java version, it means we're just taking the newest version of Java 8 that's been provided by our vendors, whether it be Oracle or Hazel. So not at Java 11 yet, but thank you very much. Appreciate that comment. All right. So question came up, 410 will be supported until 2024. We've committed to supporting 410 for a minimum of 2.5 years, and it was released in March of last year. So that will get it through pretty much Q4 of 2023. It's a good question. Let's see. I think think that gets us to about time. I thank you so much to everybody that asked a question, who joined today. And hopefully we see you all at the summit. It's coming up soon, and wish you all safe travels to the summit if you are attending. If not, we hope you have a safe, healthy, and happy rest of your week. Thank you so much, everyone.